Hi, I'm Sid. I'm a co-founder CEO at GitLab. And in this call, we're going to explore the data needs at GitLab. I'm here with Alex and Walter. Alex, you want to introduce yourself? And then Walter, and then Alex, you can maybe introduce the call.
Excellent. Alex Mrvaljevich, a data analyst here at GitLab, working with the data team.
And I'm Walter Mrvaljevich, Director of Business Operations here at GitLab. The data team reports to me. I've got a myriad of other duties, but we're here today to talk about data. Right, Alex?
All right. So so the context and setting up this call is we are migrating business intelligence tools, and as we work towards and we've got Taylor Murphy on the line as well. Taylor, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Taylor, manager of the data team. I report to Walter.
And Emily?
I'm Emily. I'm a data analyst here at GitLab.
And I think we've got Kathy as well. The whole team is here.
Hello, I'm Kathy, also a data analyst.
Excellent. All right. So in terms of context setting, yes, we are working towards migrating business intelligence tooling, and we're taking this as an opportunity to take a step back and converse with various stakeholders in the business and explore their data needs so that we can improve on the value that we're delivering on the organization as a whole and ensure that the work streams that we are aligning with the current priorities of the executive team and make data more easily available to everyone in the company. So this conversation will be broken out generally into three pieces. One of them will be exploring metrics specifically. Then we will be talking about dashboarding and reporting in general. And the last bit will be specific queries about how the data team can improve in its delivery of value to the organization as a whole. I'm starting with the first piece. In exploring metrics, Sid, and this is, we've been having this conversation with various stakeholders, so this is both a representation of you personally and the organization as a whole. Can you walk us through what numbers you look at on a daily basis?
Yeah, for sure. I try to collect the most important numbers on our KPIs page. These are the 60 numbers that I think are the most important in the company, but I've broken it also down per department.
Excellent. And when looking at these metrics, do you have different cadences? Are there ones that you look at more on a weekly basis, more on a daily, more on a monthly?
Most of them, so cadence-wise, most of them I think are on a monthly basis because every month we have our metrics call. We look at all the KPI. We should look in every metrics call. We should look at all the KPIs for that department, and we should look at how the OKRs are progressing.
Okay. So most of them are on a monthly basis. Are there like, if I have to ask you what three metrics you would consume with your cereal in the morning, which one would those be?
Well, I literally have two monitors in my living room, 65-inch, that have the Clary statistics for this quarter and next quarter. And I looked at them an hour ago because our number one metric in the company is IACV. So that is the projection of IACV is the most important number by far.
Okay.
It's not literally because I don't have cereal.
Okay. Good. All right. So you mentioned tying these back to OKRs, and so when we talk about OKRs specifically, do all the metrics that you look at specifically match to an OKR, or are these kind of like parallel streams for you?
Many times, so OKRs can be different things. And most times you want OKR. Well, every OKR should be measurable, and OKRs are the change. So maybe I show you a paragraph from the bottom of the OKR page. The OKRs are what initiatives we're focusing on in this quarter. Mm-hmm. Our most important work are things that happen every quarter. Things that happen every quarter are measured with key performance indicators. This page needs an update, and I'll write it right now so we have it updated. OKRs can, part of the OKRs will be changes in So I think like we're not going to have an OKR that says close deals or ship software, because that's what we do. So OKR is what's different. But frequently, an OKR will be to improve something. And a lot of the times, either the goal would be to improve a KPI, or it will be a secondary effect of that change. So some OKR should relate to changes in KPIs.
Okay, so these are tracking more changes of state rather than the operational metrics that you evaluate on a continuous basis, right?
I think so.
Okay, so then, looking back at that at previous OKR and looking forward at the next one that you're planning, how comfortable are you with your current visibility on whether we are or are not on track to achieve them?
I think it's very poor. We don't regularly report on OKRs. I had one instance where, for example, I had to ask 3 times to get an update on the OKRs. Each was a week, so almost a month passed before I got an update. We only have 1 quarter to achieve the OKR, so not getting an update for almost a month is not good. And that's not, the problem is not that report wasn't doing his very best. The problem is that we're not used to reporting on them on a regular cadence. So that has to change. So that's why I said to Paul, look, every metrics meeting, all the KPIs should come back and all the OKRs.
Just writing notes. And these, so the OKRs are currently not part of the metrics meeting, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. And in the metrics meeting, in the context of the metrics meeting, have you had an instance in the past, let's say, in this quarter, where you've been having a conversation with someone about a metric and you'd had to explain what that metric means or how it's defined?
Yes, I am. If you look at the KPIs page, there are now links. There's a lot of links on there, but a very large percentage of them link to something that just says to do. And it says it all on the same page. So these links actually made it worse, because now it's not possible for me to tell anymore which KPIs actually have an active definition. Also, the links go to one metrics page. That's not how GitLab works. GitLabs, we have functional areas of people. And as you know, like the data we collect is across different departments. And I think the departments should be responsible for defining what a metric means. It's their thing. Like sales should define what they think is IACV. Marketing should define what is the marketing efficiency ratio. I think the data team should be consulted on that, but it should be something that's front and center for marketing people. So when they look at their marketing pages, they see those definitions. And the page shouldn't say definitions. The page should just talk about like how to do their roles, but explain the concepts involved. So I think we have a long way to go there. And a great first step would be to remove all the links that just link to a to-do, and then start working with the teams to get that definition or that concept into, it's not a definition, it's a concept, into their handbook, and then link to those.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very, very much. That's extremely insightful. So shifting away from metrics very briefly, and then moving into very specifically into reporting and into dashboarding. So the previous BI tool, how frequently would you say you would have access to that?
Yeah, a couple of times a week. I thought the graphs looked really nice. I was frustrated by my inability to quickly access something. It's one of the reasons for making the KPI page. So I think the navigation in the tool was very hard for me. So I much rather have like one overview, like these are all the metrics for an executive that the team has. I can quickly find something on that page and then go to the relevant graph. So I would like to use our handbook as a navigation tool to the new BI tool. Not saying that there shouldn't be other things, but I think that should be the primary way. The handbook is how we expose all the information in GitLab. So instead of building big composed dashboards or adding a lot of navigation to any BI tool, at least make sure that it's also navigatable from the outside. Another problem was that some of the things were out of date without you really knowing. But no, I'm not sure that was true. But a few times we made something like we just added data to an Excel sheet and then made a graph out of that. But that becomes still really, really fast. But it was the best solution we had at the time. But I think all of those things got out of date. So I think it was a wasted effort. So I think, look, either we get it from the system of record and we make sure it's always up to date, or we just say, okay, well, this is apparently not the most important thing to get right now. We'll get it on an as-needed basis.
Okay. And now that we're in the transition and the previous tool is not currently available, what would you say your primary access to reporting and metrics is?
The metrics calls.
And how do you feel about the metrics calls generally, as a structure and and in regards to tooling?
I think they're good. They're worthwhile. It took some time to get everyone to use the Google Doc as a way to kind of ask questions, ask suggestions. And I think every metrics call should kind of start with like, hey, what were the to-dos from last time and how far are we in addressing them? Because I had a lot of calls where the stuff from the last time just wasn't addressed. And that makes it frustrating because then you're like, okay, well, they didn't even do what we agreed on last time. They don't even refer back to it. Am I going to invest a lot of attention in this meeting?
Okay. When you need access to a specific metric or a specific report, assuming the data team suddenly blinked out of existence, who would be your first point of contact?
Paul Mackel, our CFO.
Okay. And out of all the metrics and reports that you work with or are presented with, which would you say is either the most painful or the most ones that you have the most frustrations with?
That's hard to answer. I'll answer something different. I've asked a few times to make sure that everything that's in our metrics sheet, so the sheet that we share with investors, that has a link to a definition. Yesterday, I changed multiple terms on that metric sheet because I think they were not clear. For example, something referred to employees. Well, it meant to refer to team members. I made a couple of other changes. You can probably find them in the Google history. But still, we don't have links to definitions. For example, we said, and GitLab Enterprise, or we say GitLab CSAT. CSAT stands for Customer Satisfaction. And I thought, well, that's amazing that we have that because investors asked for that, and it's a really stat that we're missing. Then I realized that's not satisfaction with the product. That's satisfaction with support. That's how happy people are with our GitLab support people, not with the product. So we've been sending something to investors for years now that is absolutely not what they think it is. Any reasonable person would say that's consumer satisfaction with the product. I think we should have a very, very high bar for what we share with investors. And that's why everything should link to a definition that is in that thing. And I've been trying to get there for many, many years. I've been also trying to get to definitions on the KPI page for many, many months. And it's something I really want to enlist the help of the data team to get there as soon as possible, because I think great data starts with great definitions. And just the obvious thing, as we get, in any case, giving investors the wrong impression is a horrible, horrible thing. And as we progress towards becoming a public company, the stakes are just going to get higher there.
Excellent. Thank you. So then the third and last section of the conversation is very, very specifically about the data team. So it's a question we've been asking is, in your view, what would be one thing we could do to double the value of the data team?
I don't know. I'm not close enough to see that. But I think what a natural, like, it's always hard. Like, do you have one data team or do you have multiple data teams for every function? We have one data team. But a pitfall of that is that the natural response of the data team is to cater to the needs of finance. And I think that's happening to a large extent, where a lot of the data team is focused on financial metrics and financial reporting and not on the needs of the rest of the business. Now, I think that on one hand, that makes sense. Like, the financial metrics have to get to a certain quality level, the first, because that's like stuff we put out to reporters. And like, if you could choose one department that had accurate metrics in your company, it would be finance. So we might be putting the prioritization exactly right as it is, but it is a common pitfall. So I'm not sure whether we're doing it wrong, but I want to point out that we got to pay a lot of attention that this data team serves the needs of the company and all the executives, not just of the finance departments and the finance executives. And it's something I'll be watching and I want everyone to be aware of. And also, I'm very grateful that finance did such a good job. I know of other startups in YC that had to redo 3 years of accounting. That ain't fun, and it is horrible for a company trajectory.
All right. So to play that back, a good way for us to increment value would be to make sure that we pay attention to the needs of all teams, and that's kind of like the 2x. What is the 10x data team? What is the 100x data team in your mind?
I'm discussing a bit with Paul. I want to say it here too. Like, so data is looking a lot at the past, and we're also looking at forecasting. And there's a model of the company that we use to like project our financials, etc. And it has certain gearing ratios. At the same time, I'm discussing the same gearing ratios with executives, but without knowing what we're using to model our projections. So we're all trying to figure out these things, like how how many support people do we need? Oh, it's a percentage of revenue. Okay, how many technical writers do we need? Is that a percentage of revenue? Is that a percentage of the number of developers we have? Is that mixed? I'm trying to figure this out with the technical writing team. At the same time, we're making projections. It would be very cool if we can integrate all these things. If we can make sure that our OKRs are changes in KPIs, and that our KPIs have certain gearing ratios that predict the financial model, the projection forward, because that makes it a lot easier to start tweaking these things. It makes for a much easier conversation. Like, hey, sales, we should tweak the number of solution architects to salespeople. Like, we increased that recently, and I think it's a great thing. But if we tweak that, we can achieve this outcome. So exposing those gearing ratios, I think, makes the whole company much more understandable and also more manageable, because you can point directly to something. And then you can track whether, like, this is what we projected for the KPI, this is what it's doing, this is what we projected for the gearing ratio, and this is what's happening in reality. You can see what is getting results. So having that kind of all the way is something that I fantasize about, and I think might be very useful as a way to kind of instrument and control the company, or like have great feedback mechanisms in the company. Like, suppose we get a whole bunch, suppose that technical writing does correlate to revenue, we get a whole bunch of extra revenue coming in, boom, immediately the headcount for that team goes up. Like, no one has to do something, make a yearly plan or nothing. No, we know that's correlated. We know there's going to be extra support requests, and we know that support people need the help of technical writers to update the documentation. That makes everything so much easier. So I think that would be a 10x in my mind.
Thank you. All right. So then the last question I have is while we're like feel free to explore every tangent you want on this one. If you could know anything about GitLab as a business, what would it be?
The IACV.
Do you have that currently? Oh, let me rephrase that. If you could know anything new that you don't currently know about GitLab as a business, what would that be?
Yeah, luckily I have the IACV. the ICV in the future would be that, but without cheating. No, I would like to, it's a great question. I would like to have more data on how people are using the product. So we have on our homepage, we list like the 10 stages in which we have an offering. I want to know of every stage, what percentage of our users has used that in the last 30 days. And I'd even more like the capability or the category. So we have 10 stages. We have about 70, 80 categories. Those are like the purple links on that table on the homepage. That will be even more useful.
Mm-hmm. And is just usage, or would you like to be able to explore that in different ways?
I think like active users is like 30-day active users is a great metric. We can get more granular, but that would already be amazing, because it would allow us to detect when we make something worse. We can detect when something needs attention, or when something is not surfaced enough. I think that'd be amazing. Our product managers would be very happy, and we'd be able to direct our engineers to the most worthwhile efforts and measure whether what things have an impact.
Okay.
Just to make sure I understand that one fully, Sid, it sounded like you were saying you're more interested in granularity of usage of the product than necessarily the ability to tie that usage back to customer information or something like that.
Correct. Of course, that would be nice as well. But imagine we have this table, and then either here, like under the stages, or after everything, we have a percentage of like, of all our monthly active users, this is how many people are using ChatOps. And then we can say, okay, we're going to invest for 2 months, we're going to invest some extra time in ChatOps. And are we then seeing that rise, or is it just a lost cause? So that feedback loop would help. Also, we'd say like, oh, we're shipping this, we're saying we have it, but nobody uses it. So I'd like to put that actual number on our homepage, because people see this and the first question they have is like, is this real? Are people actually using this? So we should show them like, these parts are real, these parts aren't.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks for asking for clarification.
Actually, thank you very much. That is all very useful and immediately actionable information. I would like to open Walter to any closing remarks or questions, as that was the last one I had. And then if you have any other topics that you'd like to explore personally, Sid, turn it over to you.
Yeah, no, that was the question that came to mind as we were going through all of this. I definitely appreciate the frank conversation on the subject. I think you hit on something that we've definitely been hearing as a theme as we've started these conversations, which is the business units and leaders starting to say like, hey, I think there's more that we can leverage the data team for across the board. And it shouldn't just be sort of financially tied metrics, but there's other places where we can have value for the organization. And so it's great to hear that reinforced from you as well.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, it's a data team. It's not a data finance team.
Right. So I think that's sort of the end of the content we had from I guess the interview portion. We definitely want to make sure you had time to ask questions of us while we're here.
Yeah. How do you think about getting the definitions into the handbook parts of the different departments? How is that? Is that a priority? How feasible is that? What are your first thoughts when you hear my remarks there?
So speaking for myself and not on behalf of everybody, I think it's going to be an interesting human challenge, just in that it's a lot of conversation to drive those definitions. I think historically we've leaned a little bit on the data team for managing those definitions and driving those definitions. And so there might be a little bit of lift in getting that used to. I want to make sure that we don't end up in a position where we're sort of maintaining that across the handbook. And, in hearing what you have to say, the goal is very much to drive the opposite. So, I don't expect we'll be in that position. But I want to make sure that, sort of to our previous points, we don't spend all of our time trying to drive all of those definitions as our only priority. There are a lot of other things that can be done, and make sure we're sort of...
Yeah, I think that although you should not be responsible for maintaining them, and that should be the teams, I think it's we're talking about 50 definitions or something that are missing. I think for most of them, there's an easy... For 80% of them, we can write something up, even in an hour-long call, and we can send that merge request to the department, find a home for it, send that to the department. So I think that's I think in total, you're talking about 2 person days. I think that would be a very worthwhile investment of time.
Add some additional context to that, though, that sometimes some of the nuances of what a definition, what goes into calculating a metric, we won't know until we're in the middle of building out that analysis. So a specific example, when we talk about retention by product, what happens if the number of seats goes down or the number of seats goes up, but the product that they choose goes down? Like, is that an account that was retained, or like, do we just base that on MRR when we break it down by... So there are all these like weird edge cases that need to be a part of the definition, but sometimes I think you don't understand until you're actually writing out that analysis.
Well, that makes sense. I think it might be a bit, so those make sense, but I think we should iterate and at least get as much done as we can. So when I look at my CEO metrics, I have one metrics that's called uptimegitlab.com. So I'll share my screen for a second. So this is like top 16 metrics in the company, like very important thing. I click that. And I do not have a link to the uptime. I think it's like it's a PagerDuty thing, or I think that's actually in the other part of the handbook. Also, it doesn't say what the uptime is. Do we count every incident? Do we, etc. So that's not a very complex process to figure that out, and I think we can make great strides with relatively little effort. And we don't need 100% perfection. Even if the definition is off a bit, it's already really good if we don't confuse investors by telling them our product satisfaction is equal to the satisfaction with support tickets. Like, that's already a really big win. And so I'd go much more incremental. Let's get the easiest definitions in there the first.
I appreciate that feedback and that example, Sid.
Most excellent. So I'm just trying to be very conscious of time. Sid, do you have any other topics you'd like to explore?
No, that was it. Sorry for taking a bit too long. Have a great day, everyone.
It's your time.
Thanks, Sid.
Thank you very much for your time, Sid.